Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Factory Funner from Board Game Tables. Factory Funner is a reprint of the original Factory Fun, which then became Factory Funner, and this is the newest version of Factory Funner, so we're 3 lines deep at this point. Now, the basic game of Factory Fun, or Factory Funner, I'm going to mess up a few times. The original game I had was Factory Fun. I skipped Factory Funner, and this is my first iteration of Factory Funner, just for context. But the original game, or the general game concept, is a game in which you're going to be trying to build out your pathways of color, effectively. You're building a factory in this game in which you're going to be trying to gather these various tiles over here, placing them down into your factory, getting the reservoirs you need, and then ultimately funneling all that into various reservoirs of paint. That's basically what's going on here. You're going to have a few reservoirs you can add, you're going to have your specific black reservoirs over there, and you're trying to create the most efficient factory as you manage the inputs and outputs of the game. The way you're going to do that, and there are multiple ways of play, but just let's pretend we're playing a 3-player game over here, we're going to be putting down tiles in the game, and we're going to be trying to grab those tiles. So as soon as you start playing, you're going to start rushing to grab the right tiles. There are penalties or rewards for getting first and last in that, but effectively you're grabbing a tile. This one works for you. And as soon as you grab a tile, as soon as you've locked in, you now have that tile. You sat there and you tried to analyze your board, and you tried to analyze the tiles, and hopefully you were the fastest person, or that's not true, hopefully you got the right tile. Being the fastest can be just as punishing as being, well, slower, because in your haste of finding the perfect tile and ensuring no one grabs it first, you might find yourself with a dead tile that doesn't help you, or something that's harder to manage or to work into your factory. But I've committed, I've grabbed, let's go ahead and start this off. Now when you grab a tile, every single tile gives you a certain amount of money. You're going to start the game with some money, you're going to add money based on the tile you gathered, and that's because you need that money to basically pay for all the stuff that you're going to have to build around it to ultimately make it work. The game is going to have a point scoring mechanism where you're going to score points in the game for your money, as well as your connections on the board. You're going to be trying to create connections, and those will give you points whenever you cover that up with one of these dots over here. So let's go ahead and show you how this works. I'm going to go ahead and lock into my factory over there. I'm going to specifically make sure that that point is around that center column. And there are 2 sides to the board in case you want a variable setup in that sense. And then you're going to start paying for the various components you're going to use. Every time you move a component, removing a component is free. Moving a component is effectively the same as removing and adding a component. And so removing or adding new components is going to cost you money. You're going to factor that in as you gain money and then lose money for those tiles. So over here, I'm going to need some reservoirs. So let's go ahead and grab my first reservoir over here. It's going to cost me money. I'm going to put that down on the board. We're going to go ahead and lock this in over here. Already I'm setting myself up for failure. I guarantee you that right now. This one, I specifically don't want to cross that there. I think that might be a mistake. In fact, even this might be a mistake. So I'm going to try to prepare for a better future, because some things can be removed and removed, other things cannot. Your center tiles over there, those machines you build, they're locked in. Those are commitments you are making, hard and fast commitments that you're going to want to be very certain about, because it's going to be hard. This game is going to be hard. But let's go ahead and, again, let's prep for the future. I'm going to lock that over there. We're trying to build for the future, and I will start building out some things, trying to spend as little as possible while being mindful of the future, because right now I'm spending as little as possible. In fact, even this is a horrible mistake. It's a horrible mistake. I'm just really... No, I'm going to lock it in. I'm going to lock it in and show you how bad things can go. This is the nature of the game. So we're going to go ahead and pay for all those pieces. I'm paying a little bit more than I need to, specifically because I'm trying to future-proof my factory floor. That's going to be a huge concept in the game. Your first tile locked in, you pay the cost, you adjust your marker, and you're good to go. I now have the various inputs for those colors. I have the output of 3 yellow, and that's going into a reservoir, because you can't, shockingly enough, if you ever run a factory, you don't want paint just spilling all over your floor. It's weird, I know, but you don't. You really don't. From there, other players have grabbed their tiles, and we're going to go ahead and put some more tiles out and enter the next round of the game. The game is, let's go ahead and do this. I'm already in processing mode. I don't need that over there. I do need a blue input. I do need, I'm going to explode. I'm going to grab that. This is a problem. You really do go through that aspect over here. You grab the tiles, the other players grab theirs, and now I have to try to make this work. Now the problem is I'm incentivized to make this 2 match up to that. I am incentivized, but that's going to be tough, so let's go ahead and remove this. Let's put this over here. I'm going to put this like that. This is going to be so brutal. And I don't need this anymore, so let's take that off. And we have to make the green hit over there. So let's go ahead and overlay some tiles. We can do that, I think, if we do this like so. And then cross that over. Nope, that won't be good. We want to do a bit of a curve piece, so we can overlay tiles like so, as we try to figure out the efficient way to get those in. But the good news, and the problem is you can only have 1 of each color paint reservoir. So you need to make sure it works for all your needs, which means me putting in the corners of my factory, probably a brutally horrible idea, but it is what it is. We've committed, and you can never, let's go ahead and do a straight across here like so. Let's find a straight in this pile. That's actually not gonna, here, we gotta go like that. we're going to have a straight across, and then a direct curve into there. Now you do have various branching tiles you can work with as well. Arguably, I should be doing that. Arguably, I'm not going to for right now. You know what? I will, just so you can see, get a feel for it, if I can find one of these over here. If I did this like this, then I could replace that instead. This should be like this over here. And then I could, instead of doing that, have a direct line. It would actually cost me the same, but it would take up less space on the board. Because I'm replacing this, it costs me the same much, but it will take up less space on the board. And there we go, starting to build my factory. Let's do one more sample round, and then we'll go into the review part of things, just because, honestly, the best part of this game is that I am always compelled to keep playing it. Okay, cool. We got some progress here. Maybe progress. No, it's not going to be progress. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be bad. I can work with this. Boom. Okay. Again, it's stressful. You kind of want to lock things in, but you also are committing. Now, the good news is I'm going to go ahead and put this mark over there, showing that I basically matched up the 2 paint into that 1 paint over there. And so I'm going to get 3 points per pip that you cover whenever you are supplying it, not from a reservoir, but from your own internal machinations of the game. Now, this one, I specifically grabbed this because I was looking for a yellow input to take advantage of that 3 yellow over there. And by the way, you could divide up that course into multiple inputs, but you do have to factor in that when you do so, you're trying to make sure the numbers match up. Meaning 3 cannot go into 2 different 2s; it can go into a 2 and a 1. So I'm going to remove this from the board over here. Let's put this like this. I don't. I do want that a little branched out because I want the opportunity to later split this off. So we're removing that. We're going to move this reservoir over here because looping it back around there doesn't work because that's direct over there. I didn't leave a little gap, unfortunately. This is going to have to curve around over there, and that's going to, the good news is I can go ahead and shove this into a corner. Maybe I shouldn't do a corner. Maybe I should do it over here. That seems better. Maybe, no, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do this here. Just for the record, this placement is a horrible idea, but I'm doing it for the sake of just finishing this video over here. And we got that looped in, so we now have our red input. We have the connected yellow input, so we're going to put a dot over here. And we still have to get the green input, which is going to have to come from this factory over here, crossing the lines of play. We need 2 straights. 2 straights, a straight over there. We need a harsh curve, like so. And then we need 1 more straight, and there you go. I've now successfully ensured that my factory is supplying the green it needs to get there, and I'm building that out. Rinse and repeat across the rounds of play, and that is Factory Funner. Try to be as efficient as possible. Try to gather tiles that will give you enough income to actually pay for what you need to move, adjust, replace. Start building more and more branching pathways. There's a variety of different tokens you can use, pieces you can use, that will give you a ton of branching pathways as your factory gets increasingly more complicated across the rounds of play. Try to have as much money remaining at the end of the game, and try to have as many lines connected up so that you're being as efficient as possible with how you make sure one machine feeds another, and that's Factory Funner. Which brings us to the review part of things. Starting with ease of play. Ease of play, this is a board game tables game, which means in general, their games have a page or 2 of rules. This is the entire rule set, and the entire thing is very clear. Gives you everything you need. It's a very clear and easy game to teach. It's a very clear and easy game to play. There are 2 modes of play I didn't talk about, but there's a non-timed mode where you take turns grabbing tiles instead. I find that less rewarding, but we'll get into that more in the review aspect. The game time tends to come in at almost always under an hour. I think the game is rated at being closer. Yeah, it's rated as 30 minutes. I find the game takes a little bit longer than 30 minutes, while the speed aspect, the timed aspect, means the actual turn selection is incredibly fast as you try to desperately grab something. There's usually a lot of min-maxing as you try to reconfigure, adjust, and build your factory in such a way that it actually feeds everything you need. And so, while I don't think it's that long, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, I definitely do think it comes over the 30-minute mark. Although, again, that might be subject to whatever group you're playing with. Table space is every player has their own factory board, so while the center stuff is all the same over here, add one of these for every person at the table. As far as player count, this is a 1 to 6 player game. There is a solo mode. I have not played that. I've played it at 2, 3, and 4 players. I can see the higher player counts working just as well in timed mode. In turned mode, each additional player adds even more of a delay. In timed mode, the good news is once you go through that urgent rush for tiles, the game round is going to be as long as your slowest player. So while more players make it higher chances they will be a slower player each round, it doesn't add significantly. It does add, but not significantly, so not a big deal over there. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, the first thing is the puzzle of play. In general, I find that reviews in which I get mentally caught up, when I'm filming a review and I get caught up in the efficiency of my own turn, the efficiency of my own action, of trying to be as ideal as possible, when I get caught up in that, that's almost a sign of the puzzle that I enjoy. I can't just stop and present the game. I have to try to build optimally. I'm upset that I built this connection directly here. That's an inefficient action over there. That's lining up a 2 with a 1 without having the grace or the foresight to make sure it's a step backwards so that I can branch it as necessary to further feed that. I was being inefficient. I played it poorly. Bad Alex. Bad Alex. But I like that aspect. I like that puzzle. I like the satisfaction of trying to build and accommodate out your factory, of ensuring everything lines up. And it gets more and more chaotic. Turn 1 is fairly boring. Turn 2, a little bit to think about. And then turn 3 and onwards is where the game begins. Turn 3 and onwards is where you start realizing that your factory is not large enough to accommodate the things you're going to want to do. And it's going to be crazy, and it's going to be overwrought. And within turn 4 or 5, you're going to want to sit there and think through the fact that you wish you had done things differently. You wish you had pivoted, you wish you had structured your entire factory differently. Some things can be moved, but first of all, it costs you money, and then your machines can't be moved, which means you're kind of stuck with all the bad decisions you've made up until your life, and this point, you're now paying the price for. I'm talking about the game, not your general life, although that too, sure. But it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle that is satisfying. It's a puzzle that is hard. The game space is challenging. And when you're done with all that, I may have to reference that later, but it is what it is. When you're done with all that, you have 2 pillars, if in case you want to pivot and adjust even further, and further make your setup and game even more complicated than it needs to be. Factory Funner is an enjoyable puzzle. It's incredibly satisfying to build things that work. It's incredibly satisfying to build multiple crossing pathways of interweaving things, and you're like, I found a way! And I earned 12 money this turn, and I only spent 11. That's $1 profit, plus I connected 2 things. That's 6 points over there. Beautiful. It's incredibly satisfying to do so, and the more chaotic the mess gets, the more satisfying the game becomes. As far as things I don't like, my biggest complaint, and only real complaint around Factory Funner, is the game has very low variability to the decision space that you're being presented with. While obviously the puzzle changes differently depending on the various configuration of tiles you have, and the ways each one gives you a slightly different configuration, and you have to make that work within your factory, the general mindfulness of the type of puzzle you're engaging with, it's a one-trick pony. It's a one-trick pony that has speed, grab a tile, place it into your factory, re-optimize as much as necessary, and go through that. So it's really just a game that I find is low in its variability, while being incredibly satisfying in the actual puzzle it's presenting. As far as what I can see others not liking, this is a bit of a twofold one, because technically what goes in the category of things I don't like is I don't like the turn-based mode of the game. I find the turn-based mode loses some of the frenetic fun that I enjoy of the puzzle of desperately grabbing something and making sure it works. So for me, the turn-based mode is not my ideal way to play, which brings me back to what I can see others not liking, which is timing, the timer mode, the frenetic live action aspect of it. That is one where you may or may not enjoy it. It's got that real-time tension, that real-time panic, and then you're going to grab tiles that are wrong for you, and you may not like that aspect of the game. You might want the more Euro-friendly nature of a puzzle as opposed to the frenetic mad dash for the perfect tile that is right for you, and so that might be a problem for you. And then secondly, is it's very punishing to mistakes. Like I said, by the time you hit turn 4 or 5, you're going to be looking back at your early game and realizing all the things you should have done differently, which you'll remember, unless you play this game in 2 months, in which case you'll forget again, and you'll be like, oh, next time I'll get it down, next time I'll do it. But it can be punishing to mistakes. It can be punishing to a point that you hit the last turn, 7, turn 8, whatever it is, and you get there and you're like, I don't think I can make this work. I don't think that this tile I take now, this tile is going to cost me money. It's not going to earn me anything. It's going to be a negative point aspect to the game, but you have to figure out what to do with that puzzle. You have to figure out what to do with that challenge, but it can be punishing to mistakes. As far as final thoughts on Factory Funner, Factory Funner is a game that like I said already, I used to own the original Factory Fun, and Factory Funner both reminds me of the reasons I liked Factory Fun, but also the reasons I got rid of it. Now, first of all, in terms of comparison, it's been a long time, so I don't remember all the details, but I can tell you there's a graphical design update, there's a change to the gameplay in terms of, and again, I don't know if this is from Factory Fun to Factory Funner, or Factory Funner to Factory Funner, but there's a change from hexes in the game instead of having squares. There's 2 tiles instead of 1 tile. There are some small differences between the games, but they very much share the same idea. I like this version. I have no complaints about it, but I think that it mostly does the same thing that I got out of the original Factory Fun, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing. It gives me a fun puzzle. It gives me something that's challenging to dive into. It gives me a tense factory that gets crowded and convoluted, and I have to puzzle my way out of it. But also, I don't like the turn-based mode, and I find that the people I play with, it gets harder and harder to find people who like that frenetic rush. I find there's a small minority in my game group that appreciates that aspect, and so this is one that typically, historically, I've had a hard time getting tabled. I like it, but then combine the low variability, combine the aspect that players don't always want to dive into this one, and I really like the experience while it does not hit the table as much as I would like. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 3.5 out of 5. It is a game that's worth paying attention to. It's a game that's worth picking up, especially if you like that puzzly style gameplay. the biggest thing I would caution is make sure that you and the people you're playing with like that real-time mode, because that's where I think the game shines. And if they don't like that, well then it's just not going to get tabled. As far as other game recommendations, games that give me the same feeling of puzzly nature to it, first of all, On Tour from Board Game Tables has a different aspect in the way you connect different things. No real-time element, total different design in terms of the way you're connecting things, but if you like that aspect of trying to connect this to that and having to pivot around the game state changing and the information you're learning coming out, On Tour will give you the same feeling. And then if you want something that's very different but gives me a little bit of the same feeling of trying to iterate upon things as, well, you get information, Number 9. Number 9, specifically spelled NMBR9. Number 9 is another puzzle game of laying things out, stacking them out based on the order things come out and how you have to manage that. It gives you a similar feeling of building things up, realizing that it won't work for you as you go through the course of the game, but still having fun along the way. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, have a good one.